When did you guys stop? It's like beating our wives, I guess. when did you guys stop sanitizing your groceries, if you did? We are thinking about stopping as of Monday now that we are both vaccinated.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it's, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we were careful about surfaces early on, and then it became pretty clear that surfaces were not a major mode of transmission.
Yeah.
For SARS-CoV-2. And so we stopped. And, people who've been watching these live streams forever will remember I had a rubric about cotton gloves that I could wear when I was out and then ditch them, put them in the wash as soon as I got home, basically a sacrificial layer. That didn't last.
I wore surgical gloves at the market for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
A couple weeks. Maybe a month or so back, March 2020. And I bought a bunch of copper tape. And I put copper tape on our outside door handles because it's antiviral. We never sanitized our groceries, but we left packages in the garage for 24 hours if they came, if they weren't if they weren't going to decay, and we stopped putting bags of groceries. For a while there, you couldn't use your own bags. And so we wouldn't bring bags in and put them on the counters. We would only put them on the floor. And
we were more diligent. We almost always buy organic. And so there's less of an urgency from our perspective of washing it because we're not washing pesticide residues off of anything. Of course, some wise person at a farmer's market says you should always wash anything that grows lower than a bird flies. But
that's right. That was one of my favorite vendors up in the Olympia farmer's market. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But anyway, the point is it quickly became clear that this thing doesn't transmit by fomite very frequently. And so we stopped being vigilant. The irony is that all these other things still do, right? We've got all these other pathogens out there. And so I would love for us not to lose track of the fact that we have actually had an arbitrary impact on all sorts of other pathogens because suddenly we're all now talking pathogen, which we should have been from the beginning. Yeah. And the fact is, flu ain't no joke.
Right.
And to the extent that we can stop being cavalier, I mean, it has never ceased to amaze me at how we don't think about the horrible impact. If you have the flu and you're a little bit careless and you get somebody sick and you cost them, however much health, right? And
a solid week plus a bunch of later.
Right. Presumably they age faster. They suffer intensely for some fraction of a week.
Yeah.
Right. That's a huge disservice you have done them. And we don't put nearly enough into thinking about how to protect people from that.
Yeah.
And, suddenly we're now all conscious about how germs do and don't move around, but we're too focused on the one germ, right? Yes, the one germ is pretty freaking important.
There are plenty of things that spread by fomites.
There are plenty of things. And so
public bathrooms, at some point it's going to be ridiculous. You're going to feel ridiculous being in a mask in a public bathroom, but there's a lot of stuff, public bathroom. We've talked about this before. It's not pleasant, but public bathrooms don't have toilet lids.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff sprays into the air. And what an easy way to protect yourself just a little bit by masking up in a public bathroom.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm actually watching with some horror. I mean, on the one hand, it's sort of reassuring because it's normalcy, but I'm watching the handshake return. Like there was a year there where we didn't shake hands.
I didn't see anyone.
Well, there's that. But to the extent that there was a handshake, it was like a little funny every time you bumped somebody by the elbow. On the other hand, are we so sure we want to resurrect the handshake? I'm not.
Yeah, handshake, we do need to be able to touch people.
Sure. But frankly.
And I guess, some things do transmit by fomite.
Yeah.
For years, long before COVID, I tend to do, an elbow or at least the back of the hand to press elevator buttons. Elevators in these enclosed spaces, you just don't know who has done what, put their fingers where and then touch that thing. And I was actually this is months ago now, but in some medical something. And I got in an elevator and a couple other people got in with me. So it couldn't have been that long ago because for a while it was like only one person in an elevator at a time. Right. And it was a nurse and it turns out her sister. And I asked them what floor and I pressed it with my elbow. And they both just smiled big at me under their masks, I could tell. And the sister of the nurse said, my sister has been doing that since she was little and she always knew she was going to be a nurse. It's like, yeah, like that is going to transmit some stuff. If someone's sick, just touch that and you touch that, you might get sick. As it turns out, you're not likely to get sick with COVID doing that. It's
right.
possible, but you're not likely.
But how many other things are we transmitting this way? And frankly, I think handshakes are suspect. And not necessary. Frankly, I think a hug is less dangerous than a handshake.
Well, that's good news.
Well, I mean, look, a handshake, somebody has touched a button, right? Or they've gotten sick and they've wiped their nose and then you shake their hand and then you wipe your eye and that's that, right? Yep. And the point is that's a pretty direct route for pathogens to figure out. Yeah. So anyway, it's not that, it's not that I don't think the handshake was doing something. I know that it was. I mean, evolutionarily speaking, it may be interchangeable with a bow, but it's doing something. Right. And you can't just, Chesterton's handshake, you can't just get rid of it. That's right. But we should pay much closer attention. We are living in much greater density than we were. And, and there's a big cost to be paid for not being careful about this stuff.
Lovely Heather and Brett, how are you both? We're so grateful for you. If someone with COVID has been in our home, how long can it stay in the air and on surfaces? We cannot find up-to-date information anywhere.
I think we can do a pretty good job of this. For one thing, especially statistically speaking, it's very likely that you are in the northern hemisphere because that's where people tend to be. I mean, it is. But anyway, hey, it's the northern hemisphere. It's summer. Do what we do. Open all your windows. Turn on whatever fans, anything that increases airflow. You can... I mean, basically.
Yeah, in that case, like everything, like air filters, fans, windows, everything. Yeah.
Everything. And go outside after, meet.
But the person is asking how long until their home is safe.
Well, here's the problem, okay? We know that there's not very much transmission on surfaces. Does that mean it's impossible? No, it can't. Impossible is not. It's a standard beyond which you can reach. I would
go ahead and clean the surfaces.
Well, I would certainly clean, the few surfaces that are likely that they contacted and likely that you will contact. And basically it's a diminishing returns problem. But probably if you did nothing of that sort, the surfaces aren't where you would contract the disease. Right. It's in the air. It stays in the air. You can reduce that effect by allowing diffusion to purify your air more quickly. Yeah,
move your air.
The more surface area your building has exposed to the world where it's exchanging, the faster it will clear. I guess the thing is it's the model that we were developing at the beginning of this whole thing. If somebody that turns out to be sick or that you don't know and you think they may have been sick or you're just simply unaware, if they spend a bunch of time in some room, then that room is much more compromised than any other place. And, airing it out makes sense, staying out of it so that, things that have hung in the air have time to settle. All of these things will help. But well, maybe that's just it. Yeah. I think at the very least it's going to be a decay rate issue, and there comes a point at which the likely modes of transmission have decayed back so close to baseline that it would be undetectable. Yeah.
We're not coming up with any numbers, but if you've got a lot of windows and you open them all, and there's any sort of breeze at all, you're gonna have a complete exchange of air in not too many hours. Should be.
Yep.
Yeah.